We'll bring this special session of the New Carlisle City Council to order. I welcome all of our guests, administration, and council. With that, we'll have roll call.
All right, Mayor Cook,
Yes.
Councilwoman Grow,
Present.
Councilman Bond,
Here.
Councilman Shammy.
Here.
Councilwoman Wright,
Here.
Councilman Lindsay.
Here.
Vice Mayor Eggleston. Here.
And the invocation will be by Chief Trustee.
Father, Lord, we thank you for the day and your many blessings and many favors. Please be in this meeting that thy perfect will be done and only thy word be spoken. Bless our first responders, our troops, and their families. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And with that said, I think we'll dispense with the rest of the information on the agenda. There'll be no resolutions and no ordinances, so we'll go down to additional city businesses. And with that, if you would like, Kathy, please introduce yourself and we'll go around the table.
Hi, I'm Kathy Wright. I think most of you know me, and I'm the end of the table.
She's the tail of the table.
The tail.
I'm William Lindsay.
Peggy Eggleston.
I'm Bill Cook. I'm the mayor of this great city.
I'm Carrie Ann Grow.
I'm Ben Bond. Chris Shammy.
I'm Chris Stapleton.
Nikki Stefano, I'm with Family and Youth Initiatives.
Deputy Jacob O'Brien, with Clark County Sheriff's Office.
Steve Trustee, Fire Chief for the city.
I'm Don Hall, the city manager.
April Lowry, Executive Assistant to the City Manager.
Brian Moore, Planning Director.
Julie Driscoll, Quest Youth Development.
Bethany Hall with Sacred Heart Church.
I'm Michael Barclay, also with Sacred Heart.
With that, we're here to kind of discuss a few things that can relate to the fact that this city is primarily made up of older citizens. And a lot of these older citizens are in need of a lot of things. We've discussed here in the past time frame the fact of food, and there have been several other situations that have come to light that maybe we need to discuss tonight. We are a city that's known for neighbors helping neighbors. Mr. Hall and I talked a little bit ago in regards to a situation that appeared on Facebook where a gentleman, a veteran of our services, needed some assistance. And I believe he got quite a few responses of help, and I believe he has gotten some help. With that, I'm going to turn it over to our city manager, Don Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council, and everyone attending, and those in the public on YouTube.
They might push the button on the,
Oh, yeah, sure. We'll pause. Hey, did you want to relax the rules of council?
It's on. Yeah, Brian turned it on.
Yeah, it's on.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
would you like to see if we can relax the rules of council for
Yes.
dialogue?
Mr.
And
Mayor,
with that,
I'll make a motion to suspend rules of council for this meeting.
Second.
Okay, Councilwoman Wright,
Yes.
Councilman Lindsay.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Eggleston.
Yes.
Mayor Cook,
yes,
Councilwoman Grow,
Yes.
Councilman Bond, and
Yes.
Councilman Shammy.
Yes.
Okay, picking up with that, kind of going with the theme of neighbors helping neighbors. It is one of the biggest things that I think is very unique and special, that we have a community that still exists, that doesn't have a large, robust government, but at the same time, we are very, self-sustaining with the fact that we have community members that just inherently go to crises when they find out about them and help folks out. I've been in the position for about a month now, and even before, after I was selected, while I was waiting to be kind of onboarded into the position, I had my first instance of a homeless person going into Sacred Heart Parish and was looking for assistance. And my wife is the administrator at Sacred Heart, and she reached out to me and just said, what kind of services are out there in New Carlisle to help people in these types of situations? We have some food, we have some different people to reach out, but while I was, I retired and resigned from the base, and I said, this would be a good opportunity to figure out what it's like to be homeless in New Carlisle. So I went and took this walk with this individual, and I realized that there isn't a lot of direct government resources out in New Carlisle. Immediately, I contacted the city, put me in touch with one of our deputies, and our deputy also kind of relayed to me, like, yes, we run into these types of situations, but we're very limited in what we can really do. So with that, it was kind of a steering situation where I was reaching out to different sources and things within the county, within the local community. And actually, the gentleman who just arrived was one of the people that I finally met at St. Vincent de Paul that had a lot of the answers to, the trouble that we were in. And they were able to help facilitate getting some identification for this individual, which was required to get him into a shelter, into a 90-day program, actually. And it was quite the success story of, this one individual who was sleeping under a skate ramp at the skate park, that, within, 24 hours, we had him in a permanent shelter, with a long-term objective to help him, get into, actual housing and have a job and things like that. But it doesn't just stop there. As been discussed in previous council meetings, we lost the services of the Second Harvest food truck. So the food crisis within our community, those who are dependent upon those, has been another thing that I've been speaking with some of the members of council with, along with some of our nonprofits and churches of, what can we do to aid these folks? And then lastly, what you were talking about, Mr. Mayor, of, the elder care situation. This was another situation that, through one of our deputies, contacted me and, asked, we had an elderly couple that hopefully I would like my wife to expand on a little bit of, there was nothing we really could do. It was a brother and sister. The sister, had some dementia issues. The brother was mentally delayed. They were really in a situation where it was not sustainable for them to be on their own. And, our good-hearted deputies and fire and rescue folks were aware of this situation, but again, just very limited resources. But contacting, through our nonprofits and churches, I believe we have them in, a position or heading into a position of long-term care to address these things. So I say all of this where, coming into this role, I was wanting to identify what are the immediate crises that I need to address immediately. So then we can, expand upon this to get to, other issues that are going on in our city. And if we can't take care of our own folks, it's kind of hard to get to these second and third layer issues that we have. So I wanted to steer this, strategic working session to, put some faces with some names, get some community partners out here in front of our elected officials and our administration, and honestly just have an open dialogue of, hopefully connecting the dots. We have a lot of good-hearted people out in our community that are wanting to help folks, but they don't necessarily know the folks who need help. And my hope is that, through, maybe this meeting and a series of meetings, we can develop, some sort of team that when these issues come in, whether it's, to the city building, our fire and rescue folks, our deputies, that they have some available resources, in front of them that they can reach out to help, assist these folks that are in need. And with that, from my administration, perspective, I guess, I was going to have, some of our folks just kind of talk about some of the issues that they've seen. So, Chief Trustee, if you'd like to.
In our role as far as EMS, most of our runs in the city, as everybody knows, are EMS calls. And as the city manager stated, our population is very large, elderly population between Vancrest Nursing Home, 1218 Lake Avenue Retirement Community, Sunrise Terrace, Rachel Court, and the Brubaker Apartments. And then also just the city populace itself is an elderly population. We run into a lot of calls that we go on, and we find elderly people living by themselves, no one there to help them, no one there to take care of them, unable to take care of themselves. When we try our best to get them the help that they need, but our hands are also tied as far as much as that we can do we turn in our paperwork, we submit to the county for adult social services for help for that, and very seldom do we get anything back. Our elderly, like I said, there are a lot of them out there right now that they just don't have anybody. Their children are either gone or out of the state, and just some of them are just, we find them in very, very poor conditions. And we try our best to get them what they need, but then also to our population also, some of them are elderly and some of them are very set in their ways. They don't want to go to the hospital. They don't want the help or refuse the help. And we can't force them to go to the hospital. If they're A&O, what we call A&O times 4, if they're alert to person, place, thing, time, if they can tell us who they are, where they are, time, date, president, that type of thing, we can't force them to go to the hospital. For us, that puts us in a legal thing of kidnapping. And then we sometimes will end up calling our deputies, and our deputies back us up tremendously. We have one of the best working relationships between fire and the police that I know of. They will back us up, and we will get to the point where our deputies will step in sometimes and try to do what we call pink slip a patient. And what that means, it puts them on a 72-hour hold at a hospital. But they also have to meet a certain criteria for them to be able to pull that pink slip. And it's not, a lot of times, it's not up to the individual deputy on scene, it's up to their supervisor, their sergeant, whether or not they'll do the pink slip or not. So a lot of times our hands are really tied, and we don't have those capabilities of in town of doing something for these people. And we have a large, and the deputies probably can speak more to that than I can, we have a large homeless population in our city. Our citizens don't see them a lot of times, but they're there. A lot of them ride bicycles. A lot of them walk. They tend to congregate at the laundromat at night, or if it's during the summertime at Speedway on their outside patio, because it's a public area. They can stay there. They can stand there, and the laundromat's open 24/7, so they can go in there and stay. With our homeless population, a lot of them are not so much elderly, but probably older, and some of them are alcohol dependent or drug dependent individuals. And we, like I said, we try our best to do what we can with them. But it is a sad situation to see some of the homes that we go into, hoarder homes that are slam-packed with stuff that we can't even hardly get to the patient. It's sad, it really is. Without breaking any HIPAA violations, This morning, we ran on a death in the city, and this poor woman was sitting in her lawn chair outside and probably had been there dead since last night. That nobody noticed until her phone was ringing constantly and her neighbor heard it. So we definitely have an issue. And as much as we try to use county resources, they're just not there. Adult or child services. We fill out the paperwork every time we go on the call, and we get nothing in return. And open any questions or anything from anybody.
Chief,
Sir?
you say you're filling out the paperwork for adult and children's services
Yes, sir.
with the county, and you get no reply. Is there any follow-up, or is there any reason
Yes, sir.
why the county is
Sometimes
not
we'll
replying to it?
call them, and they'll say, it's turned over to a caseworker.
Who has got 10,000 other cases?
Yes, sir. I filled out paperwork one time personally we went on a lift assist on a patient, and that's where we find a lot of our patients is on what we call lift assist. They'll call for a medic, or they'll hit their panic button for a medic, and all they need is just help up. We'll get there and find them in a deplorable conditions, and we'll tell them, look, you need to go to the hospital, and they don't. But I went on one, and this poor lady, she could barely take care of herself, and she was fostering 3 infants. And I turned in paperwork to the county and to the foster children's services, and my reply that I got back was, after investigation, we feel there's no need for any other investigation.
Translation, they didn't investigate.
I have something with that, if you don't mind. Our church group abated a property last year. Volunteers came out and abated a property, and it was an elderly couple living there with a disabled son, and the conditions were, I can't even fathom what I saw. Broken windows, rooms were stacked to the ceiling with trash. There was animals in there, raccoons, skunks, cats. Reported that to Adult Protective Services. Also, Deputy Bowers assisted me with that. Also reported to Adult Protective Services. They came out and knocked on the door. Nobody answered, so they left. And that was the end of that.
That's what we're facing with the different calls and different incidents that we face. Sometimes us and the deputies, we walk away shaking our heads because we know there's nothing that we can do, and there's nothing going to get done on the county level.
And it's sad that things like that has been happening for decades.
Yeah, yes, sir, it is.
Most of you know that I'm a retired firefighter at EMS, and in my time of service, we saw the same thing. And we would do the paperwork, and nothing ever happened. Eventually, we go back and find them deceased because somebody, called or whatever.
But like I said, we try our best, but, and I'm also the property chair for, or not property chair, but the chair committee, head of the chair committee for the Church of the Brethren. And we've started a large outreach to Van Crest through the church, visiting and different services for them, because we know that that's our population in the city. The majority of our population right now is either older or elderly, and a lot of them, like I said, they've been left to fend for themselves, or they've been a husband and wife, and either one of the other spouses had passed away. Like today, the woman's husband had passed away 2 or 3 years ago, and she had been in that house by herself. So, Deputy wants to expand any more on what?
Can I ask actually a couple quick questions before you move on? Sorry, Deputy.
Yes, sir.
When you say there's a lot of homeless, what are we talking? 10, 20, 30? I mean,
Depends on the time of the year.
Okay, like right now.
Like summertime, we get a little more because they don't need have to have a shelter.
Sure.
A lot of them camp out, bike path, school, the grade school, the woodland area around the grade school. We've had a couple of fires there in the woodland from them camping back there and starting fires.
I mean, are we talking 5, 10, 15? What?
It's like 15 to 20 right now.
Roughly 15 to 20, depending on, and a lot of times what they'll do is they bounce between staying with this person here, and they'll kind of bounce houses. There's about 3 or 4 houses that most of, because they're all connected,
And,
and they all seem to bounce between each other's houses.
And again, a lot of it is due to what there's a lot of either alcohol or drug connection with all of them. And we have, we know the houses in the city that we tag them ourselves as drug houses. And we know that we have several, like you said, people, they'll stay with this person for this week, and then they're going to get their drugs or fix at this house next week, and they'll bounce back and forth. But like I said, you'll see them riding bikes. That's becoming really, really popular with them. Riding bikes to the city, it's an easier way for them to get around.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
And then the child services, in the one instance you gave, that you contacted, that the house that had the 2 foster kids or whatever, but it was deplorable conditions. Who does that outfit, who do they report to? Is that county commissioners? Is that?
Jobs and Family Services, and then county commissioners.
And then county commissioners above that? Okay, well, we need to have a conversation with them then.
And I know that we deal a lot with Job and Family Services, and I will tell you, every one of their departments is like half-staffed right now. So that's
Oh, yeah.
always going to be their excuse. We've had a lot of issues with Job and Family Services and Children's Services where we put in complaints and issues, and we get the same reports back. We've investigated, there's no issue. And we're like, you're kidding me.
Right, and
So.
we get the same thing every time, and we know we're going to.
Right.
But that one time that we will get the right help, you know, so we're not going to stop doing what we're doing.
Exactly.
You know.
Mhm.
And as the city manager and the other one said, our city is known as Neighbors Helping Neighbors. If you look on the side of our ladder truck, it's on the side of our truck, Neighbors Helping Neighbors. But right now, you know, there's a lot of things that can be done and that could be done. Our deputies and us, we tag team each other. We know a lot of the homeless and that type of thing by name. That, you know, all we gotta do is look and say, oh, okay, yeah. You know.
Thank you.
I think, you know, as you'll see, and, you know, I know Mrs. Lowry has some experiences when she managed the pool, and Mr. Moore from, you know, a code enforcement standpoint, and, you know, Deputy O'Brien, and, I mean, we could overwhelm you with the amount of stories and the amount of suffering, and I believe this needs to be shared, especially to the general public, to, you know, support that mantra of neighbors, you know, helping neighbors, but, you know, also to you as elected officials, like, this is what your city administration is dealing with on a daily basis. You know, we are trying to, you know, execute the jobs and the missions that, you know, you all put before us, but we're also coming into this interface of just human suffering on top of human suffering on top of human suffering. And the answer is not the government. Whether it's the federal, state, county, or local level, there is not enough government services out there to answer the amount of needs that we have within our community. So, you know, kind of, you know, bringing in just, you know, really honestly a small handful of, you know, the amount of nonprofits and churches, and just your, you know, your regular resident that lives within New Carlisle. So, you know, thinking about communicating to your constituents and your folks, you know, it is a crisis at this point. You know, this is, you know, inundating our fire and EMS, our law enforcement, our code enforcement. You know, just something as simple as showing up, and Brian, you know, could give a litany of different stories of someone not having a shed painted, or, you know, a fence, you know, not upkept the way it is. And he's met with somebody who is extremely disabled, elderly, hasn't ate in 3 days, you know, a slew of other issues, and all he's trying to do is, you know, just, give a warning on a violation of, something not being painted or something. So, we have a very compassionate, administration and just, general staff within the city. But this is kind of our plea as, essentially the collective first responders in a lot of different capacities that, people, whether it's, through a traumatic event or, law enforcement engagement, a code enforcement engagement, or just, a kid, I know I'll share this story Miss Lowry shared with me when she was running the pool, that a 3-year-old rode his bike down to the pool all by himself. And I think nothing but a, soiled diaper and had no one to care for him. So again, how do we meet this situation? We don't have a helpline within the government agencies that we can just call and say, hey, okay, situation today, we got a 3-year-old on a tricycle, showed up to our public pool, come help. There is no one to say, to answer that line, that call. So, it's our plea to, our nonprofits and our churches and just our general community that, if somebody's got to sound the alarm bell, so to speak, I feel as your city manager, it's my responsibility to be transparent with some of these issues to, the general public, and then obviously you all as their elected officials.
Deputy O'Brien, are people open to you coming? Or are they hostile when you normally come to their home?
Depends on the person and depends on the situation. I mean, there's everything that we get involved in, there are about 1 million different variables, even just before you step foot on the property. Like Chief was saying, a lot of the times I can read a call and hear somebody describe someone, and I can probably tell you their social security number off the top of my head on half of them. Because I have to get all their information for reports. Some people, and it depends on their state that day, their mental state.
Yeah.
A lot of what we end up dealing with is the substance abuse problems, the alcohol, the narcotics, things along those lines. And when we approach someone who may or may not be having a great day, because, everybody calls the police when they're having a good time.
Exactly.
We get,
Funny it works out.
so we get out there and they may, I try to use examples typically. We have a very specific individual who, depending on the day, he may want to come up and give me a hug. He may want to fight me.
Mm-hmm.
And I have had to fight him more than once. And so it's so vastly different, just depending on the day.
The reason I ask is, in addition to spearheading this nonprofit here, is I work for 988. I'm a crisis call taker, but I work remote. And so I get a lot of calls from the Northwest. And one of the big things that we see that is effective as we talk with people is like mobile crisis teams.
Mhm.
And I know they were starting to talk about that here in Clark County and the Springfield area. But I'm just throwing that out there. That might be something that the churches and nonprofits could do as a first kind of base.
Mhm.
Now there's some situations where police have to go in first.
Yeah.
But where I'm wondering if people would be interested, because it's it's closed, people in regular clothes, you're coming in with it being a small community, might be more open to receiving services or encouragement to find services for themselves.
And that kind of stuff, I've seen it go very well. I've seen it go very poorly, depending, again, it just depends on the person and the state of mind they're in that day.
Right.
Almost all of our deputies are currently CIT certified, which is Crisis Intervention Team. You'll see a lot of little pins on most of the guys. I don't typically wear pins on my stuff except for the bare minimum of what I've got. But just about every single one of our deputies, except for the brand new ones, are CIT certified. We've gone through a lot of that kind of stuff as well, but what we've seen is, again, depending on the person,
Right.
they may have a bad experience with a deputy 30 years ago,
Yeah.
and they see a uniform and
Triggers them.
exactly. So it could react that way. It could be somebody, again, same, very specific person in my brain. We have had interactions where he has been fighting with everybody else, and I'll walk up and say, hey, you're gonna knock that off. And he's like, oh, hey, it's you. I'm like, there we go. Or there's another perfect other incident with him where he claims that I am the angel of death and I'm coming to kill him. So it just, those kind of things may work. They may kind of go sideways depending on that guy's state in that situation.
Even with like a national call taking, we have frequent flyer callers, you know, that I will have spoken with before or whatever. You know, obviously, there's going to be cases that you're not going to have people come in, but there are also intra-level, you know, cases that if you knew the situation, if you had people, you know, if the city would look into having a trauma-informed person here to kind of spearhead that, and then have a group of people, you know, from these churches or this organization that might be willing, you know, here's can someone agree to come in and meet with them?
And
Just a thought.
Making it local may also benefit, mostly because, again, we see a lot of the people who have, one of the big issues in any farming community is meth, because you use a lot of farming chemicals for it. That will completely fry someone's brain. I mean, that's when you get severe schizophrenia, paranoia, bipolar, you even see sometimes multiple personality disorder out of that. When you run into those issues, having a familiar face may help. So like if you do make it a local thing, they're gonna see the same people regularly. And so that may be a benefit of having a local option rather than like a regional option.
Right.
And I think that just to add a little bit of a segue with that, just again, kind of speaking to the city resources that we have and maximizing those to the fullest potential, these are tremendous examples of why our law enforcement, fire and rescue retention is so important. Because when you only have a handful of deputies within a community, and, same thing with fire and EMS, they have built these relationships within the community that take years to be able to establish. We had an incident when I was an Aero Queen where, recently there was a fight outside of the BMV. And, one of the people that was involved in the fight, that was actually the aggressor, suffered from mental health issues. And his cries and his pleas, were essentially he felt that this person was going to kill them. And, from my experience in combat, my mind was going a million different directions, that somebody must have a weapon, somebody's life is in danger. I was not thinking mental illness. I'm trained in a different way. But luckily, we had 3 deputies that just coincidentally was nearby and immediately responded to the incident, and was able to identify the member, knew his history, and knew exactly how to address the situation. But the escalation of use of force in that type of situation with somebody who doesn't have the institutional knowledge could have very easily turned tragic, or at least very violent. Because the person suffering from mental health also knew the deputies on scene, and it took them a while to de-escalate, but I watched them utilize their skills and, take the member from, a 10 all the way down to a 5, to a 3, to a 1, and then calmly have a conversation within an hour with the individual. So, again, like incentivizing retention for our folks is paramount. We're never going to have a huge police force in the city that I see in the foreseeable future. So, anything that we can do to incentivize, retaining, our folks is paramount to the safety of our community.
Deputy O'Brien,
Yes, sir.
if you were to need backup, where's your backup coming from?
It depends on the day. For example, today at 7 p.m. we'll have an additional New Carlisle deputy out here. There may be one in Bethel Township they patrol mostly the Park Lane, Medway area. If we're having a real busy bad day, they may be coming from the other side of Springfield.
So on a given day, it could be anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes?
It could be anywhere from about 10 seconds to about 30 minutes. I would say.
In the meantime, you're standing there facing someone down who seems to be aggressive.
From my department, it's not that quick. You know, we identify property stuff, right? You know, they, like I said, they need their shed paid. I know that about the gentleman you're talking about who posted on Facebook. There's actually 2 open violations on that property. One has been going on since 2023. And I actually had a group go out and start abating that property as well, free of charge. It was part of the program that I talked to Councilwoman Grow and Councilwoman Wright about in the past, so I was kind of testing that a little bit, so there is help for that person. So it's not just elderly, it's also the veterans. We're able to identify the single moms. There's one particular family that has a single mom with 4 kids. They don't have any HVAC system in their home, so there's no heat and air conditioning in the home. They're using space heaters in the wintertime, which is a hazard. So we're able to see some of the mental health side of all these things too, the conditions of these families that are living in. We can identify who's hungry, we can identify who needs clothes, we can identify probably who's behind on bills by just looking at the conditions of where they're living. What's changed a little bit in the code enforcement perspective is we're not just sending out letters anymore. When we identify these properties, the first thing we do is try to make a personal contact with them, whether it's in person or over the phone. We build a relationship in person. We're able to identify the special needs of those individuals while we're having these conversations on the phone, and a lot of the times that's what we're hearing. I can't afford it, I can't physically do it. And that's a lot of what we're dealing with in the code enforcement perspective. So just kind of understanding, like, my stuff is not nearly as quick as what they deal with in an emergency situation. But there are some hazards out there, you know, not just grass and weeds, but there are some bigger things going on out there in the community. I could probably name off right now 17 properties that should be condemned, that people are living in, that are in deplorable conditions. And there's children, elderly, veterans, single moms living in these homes.
Bell Manor.
And these 17 condemned homes are a detriment to when we send the firemen,
Absolutely.
EMS,
And even the vacant
And a-
properties.
deputy. in.
Even the vacant properties, you know, that the squatters are getting into. I can probably tell you that there's homeless children living in this area as well.
It's one of those things for us, just the mayor was talking about us going into the vacant homes. If we don't know that someone, if this is supposed to be a vacant home, we're not expecting to find somebody. So we're not that apt to, you know, pop the front door and rush in. We have businesses in the city that have apartments above them that sometimes are occupied and sometimes aren't. We don't know which. And, you know, a lot of these houses are older homes. They're what we call balloon construction. Then I know Mr. Lindsay and Mr. both know what I mean when I say balloon construction. They go up quick. And we're going inside and we'll do a quick sweep, and then it's putting water on the fire. But you're right, it's a detriment to a lot of these homes, not only the homes, but Bell Manor. That Bell Manor scares me to death. Not one for us as far as fire and EMS. My biggest fear is for them. Because they get in those hallways, they have no place to go.
Do we have many calls for service either in the EMS or the sheriff's department at Bell Manor?
Quite a few,
Are they drug-related or other?
both.
Both?
We have people fighting in there, we've got, you know, domestics, we've had active burglaries where people are trying to get into other people's apartments that turn into fights, warrant service, mental health concerns. I mean, you name it, we've probably had it in that apartment building.
You have everything in that apartment building, from single moms with 3 or 4 kids living in one room, because they're one-room
Yeah.
apartments, to elderly and mentally ill and drug-related. You had the whole gamut in that building.
Are those front doors locked at night? I mean, can you get in there 24/7?
I can.
They have a lockbox that may or
Okay.
may not have a key in it, but there's almost always at least one.
It's a glass door,
unsecured-
right?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Well, you
If
can-
we need to get
Yeah.
in, we can get in.
And my biggest fear is just the condition of the building a lot of times. In the past 3 months, I've caught them with chain doors on their exit doors.
And
Mr. Hall, I'm going to ask this, and this will probably take a little time to figure out. I think other cities have declared such buildings as a nuisance.
Yes, sir.
Do you think it would be possible for us to draft legislation to put such an ordinance into place?
I think we need to follow the rule of the law. And we have to give the property owner due process.
Right.
But I will tell you from a code enforcement posture, not saying that Mr. Moore was not doing this, but my focus coming in as your leader is health and safety first. We'll get to tall weeds and grass and unpainted fences and sheds as we can. But again, our resources are one part-time code enforcer and your planning director. That is who oversees every single rooftop within our community. So for now, with the assets that I have, the health and safety of our community is paramount. That is where our focus will be for code enforcement moving on. When me and Mr. Moore met last week to have this discussion, and we're not running a money-running business with code enforcement, so we can get penalties and get a little extra check here and there. It's code enforcement was established for health and safety. Now, it doesn't mitigate the fact that, this is again something for you all to consider when we have future legislation and future ordinances. All that's doing is compounding and stacking on top of ordinances that I already don't have the resources to be able to enforce. So for right now, and I know that's another, working session we'll have in the future talking about the ordinances, but utilizing this information in this meeting, when we get to that point that you can write a law, but if you don't have the enforcement, it's a law with no legs. So I have to have the enforcement capabilities in order to uphold the law that you all, as elected officials, have put into law. So, health and safety will be number one, though, for the code enforcement.
Good answer.
So so I can have an understanding of kind of what we're looking at as I take this back to all the different people, is our main issues are kind of like property upkeep, which would include all things like hoarding and whatnot, just horrible property conditions that are dangerous, food and potentially water, like being able to people that actually eat and drink good stuff, communication, mainly in regards to like wellness checks and stuff like that, and then alcohol and drug use. Like, do you guys think that's like a fair summary of the different things that are going on? Kind of what I see as a potential solution. I'm like a solution guy. My dad was an Air Force pilot, so we were raised on that. He's like, so what are you going to do about it, kid? Which is awesome. Like you guys said, you don't have a whole lot of resources to be able to have everybody go out and address every single call. And like as law enforcement folks, your hands are tied in terms of what you can actually do with people. And it seems like a possible solution that I'm very aware will take years to really kind of build, make sustainable and solid, is having people being able to call into the city, and then the city being able to send those calls out to different organizations that will specialize in different areas, right? Like maybe Sacred Heart specializes in alcohol, drug-related intervention, right? So we can just be really, really good at that. We can train all of our people to know how to chat with those folks, pray with those folks, then where to take them, right? Maybe St. Vincent de Paul is your food resource, and then be able to kind of send that out. It's kind of what I'm looking at least, as I take this back to Sacred Heart and chat with our people. So I think the stories that you shared are compelling. They're very, unsurprising sounds cold, but I kind of get it. And I think a lot of our people don't know that's going on. And if they did know it was going on, it can be a really uniting cause for a lot of different nonprofits that have going on.
Yeah. Well, and if I may, I have to leave here in about 10 minutes, but the Nehemiah Foundation, we oversee about 26 different Christian ministries and work with 80 to 120 different churches in Clark County. Most of that is concentrated in Springfield, but we are trying to get to know the other cities more, and so that's something I want to do between now and whenever the next meeting is to figure out who are the churches in this area that are interested in working together and what are the resources that they can provide. And then also, like you mentioned with St. Vincent de Paul, we do have a food pantry, and then we also have a clothing store, and we can also provide about 10 people, I guess 20 people over the course of 2 days per week can provide utility assistance, rent, and/or furniture needs up to $250 towards those expenditures. And so, so we do have a fair amount of resources that we can provide, but it's always limited, and so it's first come, first serve, and that refreshes either each week or each month. And so lots of connections, but lots more that need to be made, and we'd be happy in facilitating with that. And I do have packets here. I only brought 10, but I can distribute these or take them at the end, but.
Can I ask you a follow-up?
Yes, please.
Can you talk a little bit about your care portal and how that works and maybe how that would fit in this environment
Yes.
as a logistical way for
Absolutely.
us to build those communities?
Yeah. So Care Portal, it's a national program that pairs and partners school districts with caring churches in the area. And so whenever there's a child that is in need of some kind of service, whether we've gotten a lot of needs for beds recently. And so if a child, they find out needs a bed, then they can send out a request, and then all of the Care Portal churches within that district can, they see it pop up, and the first one to take it fills out that request and then gets it to them usually within 7 days or less. And so that has, they found, it's millions of dollars that they've saved in just being able to meet these needs before they escalate into much worse issues that lead to child protective services and everything else. And so, Clark County is actually the first county that they've implemented direct work with guidance counselors rather than going through CPS. And so they started working with them, and basically, they know the needs a lot sooner than the CPS workers will, and that prevents a lot more crises from happening. And so it's been a very successful program that's been able to spread now. And so right now, the only district is Springfield that is connected to Care Portal, but we'd like to see more districts come online. And so, I don't know, what district?
Northwestern does.
Northwestern, oh, it does too? Perfect, okay. And what school districts are represented in?
Tecumseh.
Tecumseh, okay, okay, excellent. Yes, we'd love to figure out a way to work with them. That would be great.
Is that something that we can expand to, like our elderly community and our veterans community? I know you primarily work with youth and through the school system, but can those logistics work in this environment?
Yeah, so Care Portal itself is only designed for school-age students, but a similar type of program at a local city or county level theoretically would be very, possible to create.
Okay.
See, I have a question for you, sir.
Yes, sir.
You said through guidance counselors, is that at the schools?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, exactly.
And you have had no contact with Tecumseh?
As far as I know, we haven't, but I could be wrong on that.
I did.
I know that, sorry.
Trying to get them to do it,
Okay.
because our church at Lawrenceville, Church of God does
Yeah.
it with Northwestern, because we're right down the road.
Okay.
And I had spoken with a few of them at the end of the year, last year, but
Okay.
that was
Yeah.
about all that happened from it.
Okay.
But they would be interested.
Absolutely, good. Okay, that's good to hear, because, if there's an open door, we'd love to walk through it.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Have you looked into contacting the school resource officers at all for that?
That's a good question. I don't know if we have or not.
So I can't speak to all the districts in Clark County.
Okay.
But as far as the Tecumseh school resource officers, they're awesome.
They are amazing.
I will call
Phenomenal.
him, our main one,
Yeah.
Deputy Loney. I'll give him a call and say, hey, I have this situation involving this kid or this parent. Do you know parents' information? Or, he's,
Okay.
he talks to those kids more than their parents do on those situations.
Wow, okay.
So,
He's also a Rolodex, isn't he?
he is awesome.
He is a
Yeah.
super
Absolutely
deputy.
great resource to have.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, so, as you guys will get to know me, the last option that I ever want to propose to you is I need to expand the size of our government. I don't think that has been successful historically. But one asset, unfortunately, our library director, Beth, is actually testifying in a Senate hearing today. But she was going to be present at our meeting. She unfortunately is stuck in traffic and can't get back. But we did have a social worker that was funded through a grant last year, a part-time social worker. And again, not saying I'm necessarily proposing that, but I do think that what the city government could offer is kind of being that nerve center of being able to then outreach and connect and also be an asset to our law enforcement and our fire and rescue when we do have these types of situations, having somebody with the education that, you know, not only can get them in contact with a different nonprofit or church center, but also has the institutional knowledge of, you know, how to help people, you know, get their Social Security figured out, their disability issues, and the counseling services, you know, that we could provide from a local level. I do know our library is our one and only warm-ups shelter for our homeless folks. And I met Beth and her team, tremendous assets to our community. Again, not a formal proposal to you all, but as I know that our budget discussions will be coming up here in the next couple months, that is a potential option if we don't have a nonprofit or a private citizen or, you know, a committee. I brought, you know, our newly passed boards and commissions handbook. I'm not necessarily sure that a commission would be the best way to address this. Just you know, reading through the handbook that you guys approved, I would need a dedicated council member. There would have to be an organizational structure, which would take away the kind of ad hoc, you know, type of forum that we've just created here. But I'm open if council would like to steer a committee. I would need, you know, a council member to, you know, essentially raise their hand and say, you know, I'll help lead this committee. But my only other option then would be potentially expanding and creating a position for either a part-time social worker or a full-time social worker that, you know, would be able to dedicate their time to addressing these human, you know, issues that we have within our community, because it is a very much a drain on the resources that we already have. And again, this isn't a, you know, a formal meeting like we typically have. This is, you know, that is my one, you know, trying to get everybody together, and then a proposal of potentially seeing if we could get a social worker on staff. As of right now, those are the only solutions that I can think of from an administrative standpoint.
I think when we get to the budget talks, that would be the time to bring that up again, so we can see what the funds are, see what a social worker would cost. I don't know what their salary or pay rates are. And then, you know, council, I think, would have to have that hardcore conversation to, and we need some I think, more stats on what's actually really happening here in the city from the deputy and from the chief and the other folks that are here, along with, you know, you guys at the city offices, because I'm sure you all get these phone calls. I know Brian probably gets stuff through his organization as well as through code enforcement. So you said we got a couple of months before we're going to be talking about the budget. Maybe that would be enough time to get us some hardcore numbers on what's happening and the type of things, like, you know, if it's drugs or alcohol or homeless or hoarders or elderly that, you know, don't have the money to fix something up or to buy food or whatever the case is, you know, without disclosing who they are. You know, that has to be kept confidential, I would think. So that's my 2 cents on that. If council's got anything else to say.
No, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Oh, I don't think big government is what we're looking at. I think expanding our community and helping our community through our resources, because we're not getting the help from our county resources, as we can all see. And they're probably pro quoing it. Is that the correct way of saying that? Doing everything pro quo and just doing their job and not really having any concern for what's going on in our neighborhood. And I think neighbors helping neighbors is what this is all about. So I think we have to tackle it ourselves and not rely on Clark County.
Anyone else?
The two times that we had our church come out and help with the properties that he's talking about, we had, 20 people show up? It was it was like families with their kids even. I think churches would respond. There's some really great churches in this community. They knew that need, it was a way that you're giving back with your kids, and you're showing we didn't go up and meet the people in the house, but we helped out, and it was something that everybody felt really good about, when we were done. I think that is definitely something that you would get churches and members of churches to think about, if there was a group, you give it a name, and this is the need, and we're going to meet here on this Saturday and do what we can. There's been people from our church that have actually asked, when can we go back? But you're just so busy with other things. But I think it's a matter of people knowing, this is the need, and can people come together, even with like the Optimist Club, at the school. It's very, very popular. The ROTC group does a lot of service projects and different things. The one group that went and helped the gentleman's house initially from the veteran was a veterans motorcycle group. But there just needs to be follow-up with that, and somebody kind of fanning that, I guess, into flame. I think you might be surprised how many people would come and volunteer to help their neighbor.
I would assume that we're not going to get a lot decided upon tonight. I would make a real good recommendation that at the next meeting of this group, that we would invite a member of each of the churches, the social groups. To Tecumseh High School, I believe there is a group over there that they can get some kind of a, what do I want to say, grade adjustment or something in regards to helping out in the community. And I can't remember what the name of that group is. Help me out here, April.
I don't think of what you're thinking of, a grade adjustment? I know students need community service.
Community services, I think is what the mayor's talking about,
Right.
because they have in the past come to our council meetings for one of their classes.
Additional.
Civics or something, yeah.
So there's another thing that they can earn the Ohio Means Job Readiness Seal for graduation. Some of the students who are not meeting competency scores, they don't pass state tests, they can earn their seal to graduate to show that they're employable. We have worked with that group of seniors for the past 3 years. I've graduated over 50 students in the last 3 years from that program that were not originally going to graduate, and jobs is part of that. Them going out and helping abate these properties were job skills that those kids can learn. So it's a win-win-win for everybody across the board in that environment.
And I agree. I'm sorry.
Another thing, I think, to follow up on the mayor, the next time we have one of these, I think we should have our county commissioners here, at least one of them, if not all three of them, to find out what are they doing to help some of this on this side of the county and not just in Springfield and not, because Springfield, I hate to say it because I know a lot's happening in this county, Springfield gets majority of the help from the commissioners and from the state. And what they get, we get very little over here in our city. And our city has the same real problems that Springfield has, just on a little smaller scale. But we still have the same problems, and we get absolutely no help from our county commissioners, and because Springfield takes all the resources.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Can I say something? So this is actually for everyone. Do you think we need to have a quarterly meeting, a monthly meeting? You think quarterly would probably be better
Yeah.
to adjust to everybody's schedule? I think this is how we're going to tackle it in our community. So.
Well, my concern is, we've got some problems presently. If we wait and do a quarterly meeting, I don't foresee anything actually being done until early next year. Go ahead, Bill.
The problems you're speaking of right now, is it something that possibly us as a city can address?
I don't know that we could actually spend tax money to go out here and do somebody's yards or the situations that both the deputy and the chief have brought forth. I think number one, there needs to be something done with Bell Manor. With the doors locked, the structure the way it is, and we were to have a fire in there.
That's a death trap.
You and I have been on this
That's a death
situation
trap.
that it's not good.
And I think on that particular instance, the fire marshal, state fire marshal will come in and shut them down. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm not up on all the fire codes or laws anymore, but I believe the chief can shut them down. If those doors are locked, he can shut that building down and vacate it.
First thing I had to do is I had to identify as myself, and I had to witness that they unchain them at that point in time, which I made them do. And as long as I don't find it again, then the violation's cleared.
Okay. But if they do it again,
As the city manager was stating, we can have violations and we can have codes, but I got to have the teeth to be able to enforce it.
state law doesn't give you that
No.
authority? So you would need that authority from this council?
Yes, sir. It would have to be, like Brian's been working, we've been working together to update our codes to where we have teeth to, to make that enforcement. So far in Bell Manor, I found, one time found the doors chained. At one time, I found the only upstairs exit, secondary exit out of the building, literally screwed shut. Yeah.
So my question to Mr. Moore and the city manager, when will we be seeing these codes put together so we can put teeth in them so our fire and police can do their jobs and code enforcement?
I think we're,
Go ahead.
So for the zoning side of things, I'm fairly done. I want to do an in-house review with the city manager since he just came in on the end of that and get his head wrapped around where our obstacles are in our code. Chief is going to be sending me some things from his end as well. And then once we've done our internal review, we want to present that to council. Let council look that over, and then you can decide if we need a consultant to come in, and then we'll look for that consultant. We'll do an RFP for a consultant and have them come in and just rewrite the entire code. If you piecemeal it together, it's going to take you 10 years.
Yeah.
So I'm wrapping my head around what you said.
Okay.
So you've got everything about ready to go.
I have everything from the 1400s for property exterior maintenance
Okay.
and for planning and zoning. What I don't have teeth on is the 618s or the 600s for law enforcement.
Okay.
I don't have any jurisdiction to enforce those codes except for 61821, which is the keeping of chickens. I don't have any enforcement to do anything with the fire code because I'm not a certified fire chief or anything along those lines. And even our fire code in our code doesn't have anything in it. He has to get stuff for us from National Fire Protection,
Let's
whatever
see.
it is, NFP, or whatever he has. There's some books that he needs to purchase as well to update our code. And our code, it doesn't give us, he does, like, for example, on a legal burn, for example, if somebody's doing a legal burn and it's on a Saturday night, nobody's working on Saturday night, well, that's it. He just goes out there and puts the fire out. Well, in our code, illegal burns are illegal, right? There should be some enforcement on that. So by the time I'm able to gather the evidence come Monday morning, the fire's already put out. I can't submit that into mayor's court. He should be able to cite them with a ticket like a law enforcement officer would do on a traffic stop, or for whatever else, cite them on spot right into mayor's court with a fine for an illegal burn. I don't have the ability to do that through code enforcement. So I need the chief to be able to give me what he can give me so we can do that internal review.
We're working on that now. A lot of the problem with our fire code, the codes are they're citing out of date, because you have National Code, NFPA, what standard they're working off of right now, the Ohio Code Book, what edition they're working off of right now. We just need to update those because some of the codes have changed and some of the code wording has changed, and some things have been added and deleted.
So is there any idea currently what the outside consultant to come in and clean these codes up, make them all talk to one another, so to speak, what that will cost? Just ballpark. I'm not going to hold you to it. 10 grand, 20 grand?
I'm sorry, what?
10 grand, 20 grand?
No.
So 50
No,
grand?
you're looking at about $100,000.
Well, the city manager can take a pay cut.
All these are salary to cover those codes.
I mean, I do, you know, it can sound extremely overwhelming,
Yeah.
and obviously, as your brand-new city manager, like, I just heard this stuff like a couple weeks ago. So, and now I'm presenting it to you, and, you know, we have to just be a little bit honest with ourselves. These are decades of neglect.
Yeah.
And now we're at an inflection point here, and so we have to have realistic expectations. Like, these are things that should have been done 30, 40 years ago when these, you know, many of these codes were written. And then, you know, legislation that conflicts with other legislation, like, you know, we're not going to sit in a room and just point fingers at, you know, everybody who's complicit in this. This is our situation right now. We're trying to set realistic expectations. I would like to see a clean code with teeth that's enforceable by the end of the year. That's my objective. We will have to, you know, obviously, you know, have some hard talks because, you know, we've listed a lot of different things. I've talked about social workers. I've talked about, you know, retention for law enforcement and firefighters. You know, these budget discussions are, you know, we are going to have to look at what are our priorities, you know, and, you know, and I don't necessarily, I'll have proposals of what I feel the priorities are, but the 7 of you as the elected officials will have to make some of these dictations as, you know, for, you know, 2026 budget year, we're going to focus on this, that, and the other. And, you know, maybe 2027, 2028, you know, we can start building a little bit more on these types of things. But at the same time, you know, kind of getting back to, you know, while we've called some of our, you know, community partners in here, when you, I mean, to go through what Brian is going through is a once in a generational type of task. And when I mean generational, I mean like 75 years that what he's accomplishing. And he's also dealing with the fact that he has a part-time code enforcer and then all this human suffering that's going on that has a nexus with trying to code enforce. So it, you know, just to propose that, you know, again, you know, I don't like to tell you a problem without offering a solution. You know, we are going to need to have to invest in resources in order to accomplish all these different things that we need to accomplish. And that's just the unfortunate reality that we're in right now.
Well, when we get to the budget talks, I think that the codes is one thing we need to talk about. That'll, got to have the finance director present to see how the funding is. I think there's enough funding there currently to do the code and possibly look into some of the other things that we've discussed here too. I don't know what council feelings is on a social worker on staff. If it would help the code enforcement and our legal eagle and our fire eagle over here, that may not be a bad investment back into our community. Mr. Cook, do you have something, sir?
No.
You look like you was wanting. Yeah, I'm done, yeah.
I
I just, like, this seems like a really large problem, and while it is, and we have a lot going on, a lot has been laid out, I don't believe that all of these situations are hopeless. I believe that this talk tonight, while it's just bringing awareness to everybody, including our constituents, that we're New Carlisle, we are going to pick ourselves up by the bootstraps and stand alongside of those who need help standing. We are going to do this, and I believe that when you can take care of your household, then you can take care of others. So we need to take care of our household in this city, because things could happen. We can't rely on the government. We need to rely on each other. And that's how we're going to survive. That's how we're going to really bring everybody up to speed on everything that they need to survive, so that we can have quality of life across the board here in our city. And I know that this could take a while, but you know what? That's okay. I personally am here for the long haul, whatever that means and looks like. And I think a lot of us here are too, whether we're serving on council or not. And I think you guys are doing a really great job with the resources we have. I think you guys have been really great stewards, all of you. And it's time that we come up alongside you guys and help you, because this is heavy stuff and you don't deserve to deal with this alone.
Thank you, ma'am.
I might just add one last final comment, kind of in agreement with you. I think the changes that I've seen straight out of high school, I traveled all over the world doing missionary stuff. And like really fast changes never last. That's just not how life works. Like, look at New Year's resolutions, like gyms have their model, and people like, I'm gonna do it. You know, and they make thousands and thousands of dollars. That's not how it works. And the best, most lasting change is like that slow, consistent, sometimes frustrating even changes.
Yeah.
And I'm not discouraged by the number of problems or opportunities that we have to be able to reach out to people and to be able to strengthen those relationships and kind of come back to it, whether it's quarterly, monthly, whatnot, super supportive in terms of where Sacred Heart's at. And there's a lot of good people who have a lot of resources who would love to help out with all these things. And also do some brainstorming on who's our person to start to connect everybody else. Because as the community groups or whatever we're going to call ourselves, we have a lot of work to do in between meetings, whether that's monthly or quarterly. It's like, let's go get coffee, let's hang out, let's get to know like who we are and what we can do. So when we do come to our next meeting, there's a lot more work that's already been done, kind of like you're saying, Mr. Mayor, than just let's have another meeting and nothing gets done for another year, then another year. So, and I think most of us are probably on the same page with that, or else we wouldn't be here on a Monday night.
I'll make a small suggestion.
Go ahead.
My thought is, I don't know, I kept thinking of when you're talking about the beds and stuff, and he said he could provide them somewhat, but you know the Christmas trees you do at Christmas where you take one child's name down and you buy them a Barbie? I would prefer to buy a child a bed, and if those names could signify the people in our town that we know there's a true need for it, not somebody who knows how to work the system. I'm well aware of how well some people can work the system. I would be more than willing to take a few names from that tree. And I think that would be one way we could start making a difference, even though it's small. It's a start. And I would not want to wait a year for anything to happen. I really don't want to wait to get a social worker, because I'm not sure social worker is a way to go. I kind of feel like you just need a person who's very attention detailed, who can, you could do the job. You could do, I mean, you don't really have to be a social worker. You just got to know your stuff, be able to talk to people and do the job. And yeah, they might be expensive. That's fine. We'll pay for what we need. But I don't know that a social worker, literally, I've met a lot of them. They're great people.
It depends on the social
But
worker.
it depends on the social worker.
Yeah.
Just because you're a social worker doesn't mean.
Well,
you're the
I
best.
nominate Kathy to head this up. Take
Yeah,
take
if I
that
were-
department.
Wait a minute. I have a question. Are you advocating taking tax money and buying these beds?
No.
You're,
For the
you're
Christmas
saying
trees.
individual donation.
Right, so there would be
Okay.
a tree in the.
I have no problem with
In the
that.
room, and you just pull it in.
However-
What you want to do.
Getting back to the social situation.
Mhm.
With the way today's society is, and when you're dealing with state, federal, et cetera laws, I think you better have somebody on staff that understands what these laws are and what you can and cannot do.
The
That's-
job that I was understanding didn't require the person to go to Joe's house and sit with him. Is that what you're wanting?
No, I mean, I think a
You're talking about a
coordinator
phone person.
or somebody who has, you know, a social work.
Those things. that would
Yeah,
be-
a
Correct. The
background.
coordinator would be
Yes, we
great.
Right, yeah.
You know, but, you know, again, I mean, you put out a decent job with a fair wage,
Right.
and you look at the experience, and, you know, somebody who may have some experience in grant writing that can also coordinate and is very detail-oriented, you know, may have some social, you know, skills and things like that. I guess, you know, I kind of cast a big net when I
Yeah.
say social worker.
Okay, yeah.
I need somebody to work with the social problems within our community, because I don't have, I mean, as you knew, we were down a body at the, you know, Church Street building, you know, for quite some time. And I mean, the ladies over at the church, I mean, they're having to do double time trying to keep up with, you know, we have been good stewards here.
Oh, yeah.
I've had enough time to really evaluate our resources, our human resources, and we are very, very lucky to have the ones we have. They're extremely skilled, and they got a full plate. But to ask, to lean into them to do more, I think
Right.
everybody has that breaking point, and we can very easily get to that if we don't address the immediate need that we have right now.
Right, and I'm 100% for you there then. I just didn't want that one title.
No, I'm sorry. I should have said more holistically, somebody
Yeah.
to work with the social issues within the community.
I think what we need to accomplish what you just said, is we need another one of her. Mrs. Lowry. You have a twin. Can we clone her? Can we clone her?
too.
Says what?
You got a dog
Well,
too.
We don't need a dog.
The only problem is there was only one of her, and I haven't seen the second one yet.
I will say, Miss Lowry is absolutely an extension of myself. There's no way that I can keep up with everything without her assistance. This was a great decision to take on an executive assistant. I treat her as an executive officer. She sometimes needs to be, you know, my eyes and ears and mouthpiece in different situations. So I very much thank you all for making that decision to take on Miss Lowry.
She's your hammer.
With that,
She's the hammer.
with that, would it be the consensus of this group that we would meet like the second Tuesday of, or the second Monday of next month?
Second Monday.
Check the calendar.
I'm throwing that out. I would like to see a representative from each one of the churches here, if at all possible.
We sent out invitations, sir. This
Right,
was,
and-
with the amount of time I had, but
Go ahead, Chief.
Talking about June 9th?
I'm also the representative for the Church of the
I
Brothers.
know. There was a gentleman that John Craybacker mentioned he should call somebody at the church, and I can't remember his name. But, you know, my thinking is if we get, the more people we get involved, the easier it's going to be.
yes, sir.
Now, I'm back to the question.
June 9th is good, I think. I mean, as far as my calendar goes, I'll put it that way.
The second Monday,
I can't do that.
you can't do that.
No.
I'll write you an excuse.
I'm at a conference. Out of state.
Okay.
What about the 23rd then?
I can do the 23rd.
The 23rd work, Mr. Mayor?
What is the 23rd? I don't know.
It's the last Monday of the month, of June.
It's the second to last.
Do we,
Oh, yeah, second to last.
we don't have a
We have a
intergovernmental,
No, we have, if we do, I don't know about it yet. And it's usually the last. Yeah,
I was thinking there was an intergovernmental meeting.
I don't have it on my calendar, so
That
they
should be,
Okay.
haven't sent it out yet.
No, I don't think so.
I think they said they don't do them during
I
the
think it was
summer.
April, wasn't it?
March 30th, March 31st.
Until October.
I think they don't do the one in June because of,
Is that?
If the school's out, so they don't do them during the summer, I don't think.
I think you do.
Do they?
Oh.
I don't have a
The
problem with
23rd
it.
should work for me, as long as I don't get called to birth.
Anyone else have any problems with 23rd?
We're just checking our calendar real quick, Mr. Mayor. Administration's clear.
Probably not.
So you want to set it for the 23rd, same time?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, anybody got anything else
no.
you want to bring up? Go ahead, Chief.
I just want to thank the council for selecting who you did for city manager. It's been a breath of fresh air. We have someone that's willing to listen and willing to give solutions, and with a very open eye. And it's been a very, very great breath of fresh air for us.
Well, needless to say, I will echo your sentiments. Don and I have carried on quite a few conversations, and the communications are great. I don't know what the rest of the council thinks, but I have no problem with our present city manager.
I'm extremely impressed.
Can I bring up one thing in regards to that? We do need to set a executive session
Yeah.
to make sure that we
Treat
set-
him right.
Set the appropriate goals for him and,
Do you want to let that
We could probably do that the next meeting.
next meeting, that
Yeah,
was my
there's a-
suggestion, do it next
Just have an
meeting.
executive session for,
Yeah.
to discuss
Well,
public
there,
employment.
there will be an executive session next meeting, I know. Am I
I don't think I'm on.
correct? On an executive session for next meeting?
Can't get back to you.
That's all right,
to see
I
if
just-
we have another issue that we need to have an
Yes.
executive session for, and I need to, it'll be within the next couple council meetings.
Well, we can still have one on the city manager at the next meeting, regardless of whatever else is going on.
Sure.
yeah, I think it's on the
So,
agenda,
yeah.
so I have no problem with that. Go ahead.
Would you like, Nikki, she is my boss. Would you like to tell everybody what FYI is about?
Sure.
Spotlight.
Yeah.
You're
Like,
right there.
just
and
put me on
not
the
everybody-
spot, yeah. Honestly, all of our programs are about helping people to make choices and decisions that are going to affect long-term life change in their lives. So every one of our programs is about life-changing education in one way or another. And we work with parents who are expecting, have little ones. We offer not just education to them, but also physical resources to them, like cribs, car seats, high chairs, all of those things. Carrie Ann's part of our Real Life Choices program that goes into 7 counties to educate middle schoolers and high schoolers on all kinds of at-risk behavior and how to set up their lives for a healthier future. Our mentoring program is called New Roots Mentoring. It's in the Tecumseh elementary and middle schools. We're at Catholic Central and at Greenon, and we're working with kids, just giving them, honestly, a safe adult to have conversations with and to help them in some of the stresses that they're trying to adapt to, especially since COVID. And then we've got our community garden out back. It's called 235 Grateful Growers, and we're just praying that that's going to keep going since we lost Jim in January. But my gardeners are amazing, and they're out there working really hard for that. As far as food stuff, we do partner with the church. The name is going to totally escape me, but they have a food pantry box in front of our building, so that we do get a lot of people that come there, and they're restocking it about every other day with food out there for people. My Ring camera goes off all the time to tell me that they're out there, but that's okay. I mean, we're willing to help with that. So that's a 20-second synopsis. I'd love for you to come out and talk to us, and I can talk for 3 hours. Brian knows that. I could talk for 3 hours about it. So I won't do that to you all, but I'd be happy to meet any of you for coffee. And
Would you like to have an opportunity to talk about one of your initiatives that you're going to have, I think, very soon? Or do you not?
Well, we do. Well, I don't know what you're talking about exactly. So
The signs.
Oh yeah. On Friday, we're going to have a team of us are going to be out on the corners of. I thought you were talking about something else. That's good. Okay. So I was like, I'm not ready to talk about that yet. On Friday, there's going to be several of us from the team are going to be out on the corners of Speedway and at CVS with signs for Mental Health Awareness Month, and they just say you matter, or you're important, and just signs of encouragement to those in the community. We're going to do it from 11:30 to 1 during lunchtime. Don said he'd come down and see us down there. We'll get his picture holding the sign. So, but we just thought it'd be a great way just to show encouragement to the community. This is a really difficult time for a lot of people, and a lot of people are just really struggling with the climate of everything that's going on right now. And so just if they know that they are important and they matter, that's really important to us that we spread that word. So, Friday.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
Anything else? Then I
It's
guess,
up to
you got
Mr.
anything
Hull.
else, Don?
I have nothing else to report, sir.
I'll move to adjourn, sir.
Second.
Councilwoman Wright?
Yes.
Councilman Lindsay?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Eggleston?
Yes.
Mayor Cook?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wright?
Yes.
Councilman Vaughn?
Yes.
Councilman Shay?
Yes.